Water rights for the national portion of the real estate exam are categorized into riparian and littoral rights, as well as the doctrine of prior appropriation. These rights are generally considered appurtenances, meaning they are rights that run with the land and are not typically sold separately unless specifically noted. When you encounter a question involving flowing water, such as a stream, a creek, or a river, you are looking at riparian rights. A helpful mental shortcut is to remember that the letter R stands for both riparian and river. Under riparian rights, the owner has a right to make reasonable use of the water, such as for domestic needs or agriculture, provided the use does not interfere with the rights of other downstream neighbors. A common exam trap involves the boundary of ownership when a river is the property line. If the water is non-navigable, meaning it is not deep or wide enough for commercial vessels, the property owner owns the land underneath the water all the way to the center of the stream bed. For example, if you are looking at a question about a farmer who uses a small stream to water his cattle, you should identify this as a riparian right. If the stream is small enough that a barge cannot move through it, the farmer owns the land all the way to the middle of that stream. If the water is navigable, however, the ownership ends at the water edge or the high water mark, and the public or the state owns the land submerged beneath. You must read the question carefully to see if the scenario describes a commercial waterway or a small creek, as that determines where the property line is drawn. Littoral rights apply to stationary bodies of water, such as lakes, ponds, or even the ocean. The mnemonic here is L for littoral and lake. For owners of littoral land, they enjoy the right to use the water, but their actual ownership of the soil usually terminates at the average high water mark. The exam often tests this by asking where a beach house owner property line ends, and the correct answer will typically be the mean high water mark. Beyond that point, the land is considered public or state-owned. Another significant concept to master for the national exam is the doctrine of prior appropriation. While many eastern states follow riparian principles, many western states where water is scarce use this doctrine. Under prior appropriation, the right to use water is not automatically granted to the landowner, but is instead controlled by the state through a system of permits. The person who first applies for and receives a permit for a beneficial use of the water holds the senior right, even if their property is not adjacent to the water source. This is the first-in-time, first-in-right rule. If an exam question asks about water rights in a desert climate or a state with limited water resources, you should immediately think of prior appropriation and the requirement of a permit. You should also be prepared for questions regarding changes in land caused by water. Accretion is the slow, gradual addition of soil to land by the action of water, which results in the landowner gaining title to that new land. Exam questions on accretion might describe a river depositing silt over 20 years, resulting in an extra 5 feet of shoreline. In that scenario, the landowner gains that land through the process of accretion. Reliction is when water recedes permanently, exposing new land, which also benefits the landowner. If a lake dries up partially, the new land exposed is yours through reliction. In contrast, erosion is the slow loss of land, while avulsion is the sudden and violent loss of land due to an event like a flood or a change in a river's course. Exam questions will often describe a scenario where a river moves overnight and ask if the property line changes. In the case of avulsion, the boundary line usually stays where it was originally, unlike accretion where the boundary moves with the land. Memorizing these terms and their specific impacts on land ownership will ensure you can navigate any water rights question the exam throws your way.